right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and it's week number 12. That second week in November. The matchups are set. We got some rivalries happening already, but I'm joined by my co-host, the man who scientifically proved that it is impossible for your nose to be longer than 12 inches because then it would be a foot. My co-host, Fresh, how you doing?
It's just science, man. It's just science. You cannot do anything about it. It's just plain fact. Haps, I'm doing great. We are week 12. Playoff rankings just came out. Nothing shocking there. One day closer to big decisions on Saturday and big decisions coming rivalry weekend the week after that. But excited to talk about what we got coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one coming up this weekend, man. I'm looking forward to it as we're getting closer and closer to this big rivalry week that we're going to have. We've already looked in about 2 weeks. We got about 11 games coming up here that's really kind of has our interest, and that's a jam full weekend. But in order for us to get to that weekend, we got to get through this weekend. So let's get right to it, man. Let's get to our game that won our fan vote this week. The Duke Blue Devils, and no, folks, we're not talking basketball here. 7-3 Duke Blue Devils. Let me say that one more time. A 7-3 Duke Blue Devils traveling to the Pitt Panthers. They're 6-4. Spread at that game is Pitt is a 7.5 point favorite. Over under is set at 52.5 right now. This is an interesting matchup to me, Fresh. It is something that we don't really see a whole lot. These aren't traditional powers, I feel like, in the ACC. Duke's having a heck of a year. Talk to me a little bit what you got going on with this game.
I mean, Duke is bowl eligible, which is also just an amazing thing. Mike Elko in his first year there in Durham has done absolutely. I think he was a magician in kind of the way he got this program, because the past few years under Coach Cutcliffe, the cupboard was bare. People were the locker room kind of lost its focus. You really didn't see anything. There was no real juice in that program. He comes in and really just settled in and re-energized, and actually informed people, you know what? There's actually football being played, and basketball season just does not start until November. And you guys, we've actually been participating in athletic events up to this point, and it's called football on Saturday afternoons. But, the way he's gotten this team to come around and buy into each other and become a family has been shocking, I think, in a good way. And it's not the way that we really thought was going to happen. When Mike Elko was a defensive coach, and you thought the defense would have been the focus point and really getting them started, building a strong defense, and letting the offense come along and grow it as the years go on. It's the exact opposite. The offense is carrying the football team, and that's really led by quarterback Riley Leonard. He's the straw that stirs the drink. He's thrown for 2,100 yards and 13 touchdowns, and he's also the leading rusher on the team with 625 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's doing it with his legs, with his arm, with his mind, every which way. So he is the key for that Blue Devil success. The offense is averaging over 400 yards total offense and putting up 33.7 points a game. So they are not just putting up yards, they're putting up points to back that up and really add validity to their accomplishment. This is an offensive juggernaut that it's going to run into a pretty strong Pitt defense. So that's going to be probably the biggest, point to look at. Is Duke's offense legit, or is Pitt's defense legit? I'm kind of writing an article about the Power 5 conferences along those two lines of, is it good defense or is it great offense? Where's the different dynamics coming into play, determining it's a good team, a good league, those sort of things. But this is actually a prime example of that. Duke's offense statistically very good. Pitt's defense statistically pretty good. Which one will be the true evident point? Which one will actually prevail in this football game? The defense, though, giving up 382 a game, giving up 21.5 points, which is actually not terrible. Considering across the country, giving up 3 touchdowns a football game is actually pretty good. But still, there's probably room for improvement in big games, and they're going to really need that defense to step up versus Pitt. It's not because Keaton Slovis is lighting up the world like Kenny Pickett did last year. We mentioned this before. This team is really focused on and led by running back Israel Abanikanda. So far, 1,200 yards rushing and 17 touchdowns. he has been a beast in the backfield, truly embodying a Panther and overwhelming the opponent now on a daily basis. So if he can get going, it could be a long day for the Duke Blue Devils. But if they can somehow keep him managed, keep him under wraps, it could lead to a prevailing victory for Duke and get 8 wins. Um, it's that's a there's still that I think that the 10 win, including a bowl game, is still in reach for the Blue Devil program. If Mike Elko can pull off 10 wins in his first year, uh, that sets the standard pretty good. But also, it really helps recruiting. Like, hey, we're building something special here in Durham. On the other side, looking at what Pitt has done, they're the defending ACC champions. Obviously, they're not playing for a title this year, but if they can somehow get another win this week, get to 7, maybe build the last week, get to 8 over, beating Syracuse the last week of the season, finishing with maybe 8 or 9 wins, surviving a bridge gap season would be really good for them because they can then keep building off of that, get more developed offensively, defensively, and move into 2023 with some momentum. But yeah, this is a big game for both teams to get to late in the season where there's still a lot to play for both programs. With that said, um, I'm going to go with the Dukies. I think the Blue Devils find a way to get it done. The defense does just enough, shuts down that passing game, and they prevail and keep their hopes alive for a 10-win season.
Yeah, Fresh, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm looking here at Duke, and as you're talking about going to that 10-win season for the Blue Devils, they have this week against Pitt, which is a challenging place, especially with Narduzzi and having a great defense there. Pitt's offense sometimes is going to struggle, but I think with Abaconda, he's been really powerful over the last few games. But Pitt is second in the nation right now, averaging 3.7 sacks a game. The only team that does it any better is San Jose State right there. So they're getting after the quarterback. But the nice thing is, just like you even mentioned here, Duke has the great equalizer playing quarterback. Like, that's the really cool thing here for the Blue Devils. Riley Leonard has been absolutely impressive. You look at him as a quarterback, he's got 2,100 yards passing. He's got 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But then on top of that 6.3 yards per carry and 10 touchdowns there. You didn't even mention Jordan Waters. For Pitt to win this game, they have to limit Leonard. They have to be able to not let a single player beat them. This is something very, very similar to, I would say, almost North Carolina using the rivalry between the two games. You take a look at what Drake May is doing over there in Chapel Hill, and then you look at what's going on Leonard's doing here at Duke. It's impressive. It's impressive that he's kind of been this single player wrecking crew that leads Duke into this next level. But it's not just offense for Duke as well. Duke has been very impressive on the defensive side themselves. They got 26 sacks on the year. Brandon Johnson, which is most impressive to me, has been an absolute shutdown corner on their end. He's got 5.5 sacks from the cornerback position. He also has 2 interceptions. He's recovered 2 fumbles. He's forced 1 there. He's been really, really impressive on the defensive end. So I'm watching him throughout this game and seeing if he can force Slovis into a turnover here and there. On the other side of the ball for me, Pitt, I'm looking at Abaconda. This dude has been on an absolute tear for the last 4 weeks. This guy has been absolutely impressive. It's incredible. And I mean absolutely incredible. I've said absolute like 3 times here in the last couple of sentences. But you take a look at the last 4 games. And in those last 4 games, he has 11 touchdowns on the ground. He also is sitting there with over 700 yards rushing in 4 games. Now, Virginia Tech, Louisville, UNC, Virginia. All 4 of those, with the exception of UNC, not the best opponent there. But Duke's defense is average. It's not bad. It's not great. Definitely going to be able to run the football there. It's going to be which one of these teams can do what they want to do. Can Duke kind of get rolling with them, or is Abaconda going to be too much for the Blue Devils here? I'm looking at this game fresh. I'm looking at maybe someone really making a late turnover here. I like Dennis, the linebacker for the Panthers as well. Also, they have a couple other really, really tough defensive ends here that can get some pressure. Oof. If Pitt gets more than 4 sacks, if they get to that 4 sack mark, I have a feeling that they're also going to wind up forcing some turnovers here. I'm going to sit there and say, as much as I want to pick the Dukies, I want to pick the Blue Devils. I'm going with the Panthers in this game. Give me the Panthers by 4.
Oh, even giving them the points.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the points there in a second. I had a hard time. I went back and forth a lot on this game here. So, Fresh, let's move to our second game this week. We're going all the way out to the West Coast there. It is the Boise State Broncos traveling to the great state of Wyoming to face the Cowboys. Both these teams 7-3, 6-0 in the conference for Boise State. Wyoming is sitting there at 5-1 in the conference. You're looking at this. Boise State is a 14-point road favorite in this game. That shocked me a lot, Fresh, when I started looking at this one here. Over under set at 44 and a half. Let's dive into this because this is an interesting, both these teams are very interesting. So let's dive into it here. Fresh, talk to me a little bit about Boise State versus Wyoming.
I think, well, first off, Laramie, Wyoming is a tough place to play. It's, if you've ever seen videos of it, it's first of all, it's a mile high. They make sure that you're well aware of that when you get up in there. But it's kind of like it looks not like your typical college stadium. There's bleacher stands in each of the end zones. It's kind of open aired. Everybody in the state is embracing it. It is wild. It is, raw, um, ruckus, mountain kind of a feel to it. And you're in for a battle when you get up there. And so I mean that right there is just adapting to that kind of thing. Coming from Boise State, it won't be as difficult from some other teams who have to make that true, uh, connection adaptation to it. But it is still something you have to get ready for and be prepared. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy. It's going to be loud. It's going to be nasty. And you also have to factor in that Wyoming is playing for a chance to, in essence, be number one in the Mountain Division and have put themselves potentially in a Mountain West title game. This isn't just two teams messing around. This is a game with a lot of implications that could really uh, push a program, in two directions. Ever since Josh Allen left Wyoming and went to the NFL, the program's been up and down, but they haven't waited for that great moment to return to where they were when he was that quarterback. This is a chance for them to get back there. You take down Boise State, which is a rival, which has been the face of the Mountain West for a long time. You take the tiebreaker advantage of them going into the last week of the regular season and have a chance to play for a conference championship. And the goal, if you have an opportunity to play for a conference title or put yourself in that situation with 2 weeks to go or a week to go in the regular season, you're obviously in the trajectory of having a great year. And so that's a goal for everyone. This is right there in front of them, and being at home makes it a little better. Like if you're going to Boise right now and playing in that blue turf, Smurf turf, I would give them absolutely no chance whatsoever. Being at home gives them a breath of fresh air, to have confidence to be in their own bed the night before, practice together, and have the crowd behind them, which gives them an extra bump. The Cowboys do need to run the football and play defense. This is going to have to be an ugly, slow it down, grind it out, use the weather football game. They are averaging 188 yards on the ground compared to 139 in the air. They are not a passing football team at all. They have to run the football 4 yards in a cloud of dust, or in this case, a cloud of snow, and matriculate the ball. They have to score touchdowns. You cannot win football games by kicking field goals against rivals or in big games. You have to score touchdowns. You have to control the clock. Keep that Boise State offense on the sideline. They literally have no room for error whatsoever in this game because their offense has not been the strongest or most consistent. And if they get down, that passing game is going to be painful for them to use to get back in the football game. They do rely on the running back Titus Swen, 752 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's going to have a game of his career this week. I'm saying they have to give him the ball at least 25 times, maybe 30 touches, 150 total yards, and he at least find the end zone once to make sure they're in this football game come the fourth quarter. But he's going to have to be the focal point. Obviously, Boise State knows that. So Wyoming's going to have to find somebody else who wants to step up, if slot receiver, maybe the tight end, to at least make a couple plays. You've got to find a way to play your best game this week, or the season could kind of slip away. You'll find yourself in a bowl game, but you won't be playing for the game that you actually want to accomplish your goals with. They're scoring 23.2 and they're giving up 23.1. So the defense is getting the job done. The offense needs to be better and more consistent, and that starts with this football game. On the other side, Boise State started off the season a little, rocky, a little up and down. They weren't what we expect them to be from the Bronco program. We kind of lost some faith in the offense. We were trying to figure out what they were trying to do. Defensively, they had some holes, and they've kind of put it together as the season's gone on and got themselves in a great situation to do what they always do, play for a conference championship. They have found ways to, on the fly, adapt and grow, which has been extremely impressive. The defense was giving up 25 or 30 early in the year. They're down to 17 points. The offense was scoring maybe 20 points a game. Now they're scoring 30. They found an extra 10 points per game as the season's moved on. It means they've made adjustments. They found out what they are. And what they are is a ground and pound football team. Both these teams' offenses both rely on the running back. But really, George Halani, he is the key. 845 and 10 touchdowns right now for the Broncos. This is not an air-it-out football team. Think Johnson, the running back, the year that they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. They was a very run-focused football team. This is the same kind of mentality. Run the football, use play action, use some trickery on the edges, and let the passing game develop in there. But use the running game as your focal point and push that and make that drive your opportunity to win a football game. Defensively, they're giving up 264. So they found ways to control and get the other teams off the field, limit the points. But 264, I mean, that's pretty dang impressive. That's one of the best in the nation. And they're only giving up 107 on the ground. So we talked about Wyoming loves to run the football. Boise State's giving up only 107 on the ground. Which of those sides of the football is going to break or blink in this case? In the end, I think this is going to be a lot closer than 14. I take give Wyoming and the points. I think Boise State finds a way to squeak it out like 17, 14, 20, 16, somewhere in there. It will not be a blowout football game. The weather and the crowd will be have major implications, but I think Boise State squeaks it out and survives their trip to Laramie.
So, Fresh, I was looking at Boise State here very quickly, and the only team right now that Boise State has not beat by a good, I would say, 2 to 3 touchdowns here is Air Force. And Air Force has a really dynamic offense, and it was in Colorado Springs for that game a couple weeks ago. Boise State went to Colorado Springs and beat Air Force, so that's a pretty impressive win. You take a look and see what Boise State has done, and they have one of the players that I'm going to call right now is probably my transfer portal, probably top candidate to be in the transfer portal to wind up at a Power 5 conference, and that's Taylon Green, the quarterback. He's a 6'6" freshman this year. He has been he's come on strong as of late. You take a look at the month of October going into this month of November here, and he started to really ball out right there. He's got 7 out of his 10 touchdowns, all 7 of his touchdowns have been in the last like 5 weeks here, and he's only thrown 2 interceptions here since taking over that quarterback position. He also is a little bit of a running threat, not as much as like some of the other guys, but you look at him, he can extend the plays with his leg. George Halani, the junior out of California right there, he's going to be my real target player. How he goes, this game goes. If Wyoming, if Big Sky Country gets caught in the view of the mountains and the sun setting over those mountains and seeing the sky and the clouds and all of that and the gorgeous look of Wyoming and maybe a moose crossing the football field. I don't know if they can keep moose out of the stadium there. They probably have a way, but
the Cowboys, they better do it.
They better do it. That's going to be where this comes down to, is if he's able to really get going, then watch out. I think that this game could get out of hand for Wyoming. But with Wyoming, Tyus Sween, you see what he's done as a running back there. You take a look also what Peasley has done as the quarterback. He's not it's tough for me because he's only completing about 52% of his passes right now, and he's taken 14 sacks. Like, that really starts to scare me when I start to see that when you almost are sitting there with 9 touchdowns and 14 sacks, and it looks like he's not even going to be playing this weekend. I think they're talking about him being out this weekend, so they'll move to sophomore Jaden Clemens going in. So this kid is out of Utah, and I just had this come across here fresh. So I had the quarterback Peasley here. It's saying that he is out now for this game. So it's going to be interesting. Does this quarterback, does Clemens offer a different dynamic? Can he change this game here? Because he's a little bit different of a quarterback as well. A little bit better at completing the ball. He has a higher completion rate as well, but he hasn't played a bunch. He came in last weekend and went 7 for 11 for 90 yards and a touchdown against Colorado State. Now, Boise State's much different than Colorado State. At the end, I also put down here that it's going to come down to third down for Wyoming. They're only getting their third down conversion rate at 37.5%. If they don't start converting third down at almost 50% against the Broncos, I got a feeling that this one's going to get real ugly real quick. But, home field, it's weird. You take a look, Wyoming, they've won 4 straight right now. They've put themselves in this position. But then when you take a look at who they've beaten these last 4 weeks, New Mexico, not very good. Utah State, they're Hawaii, not very good. And then Colorado State, not very good. So they've played lesser competition. I don't know, Fresh. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say Boise State, and I'm going to say Boise State, but just under that 14-point mark. I'm going to say Boise State by 13.
Either way, it'll be a fun one to watch. It is on CBS Sports Network, so if you get that channel, 7 o'clock Eastern time, tune in, watch some cold weather football and a fun little Mountain West setting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fresh, it is time for our first, this time this year, I can't believe it's taken us all the way to week 12 to have a Pac-12 after dark game. Is the late night game, 10:30 at night. Oregon facing Utah. This game is in Eugene, Oregon. The Ducks are a 3-point favorite. Over-under is set at 61.5. So really, it's going to come down here, Fresh. Can the Ducks recover? Can the Ducks recover to a nasty loss to Washington last weekend and being able to get past that? They have taken a drop. They're no longer going to the college football playoff unless some all sorts of crazy happen. And then you take a look at Utah. Had a terrible loss. I don't want to say terrible loss. I changed that. Had a tough loss at Florida to start the season. And then they go to UCLA. They lost at UCLA later on there. They had the big win against USC. This Utah team is kind of like, where are they? Are they falling backwards? Are they a top 10 team? Like where exactly they are? They're led by Cam Rising. Cam Rising has done everything we thought he would do this season here. You look at him, 19 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on his season. And then how healthy is Bo Nix? That's my big question. How healthy is Bo Nix? Bo Nix taking that shot, going out late in that Washington game. I know he powered through, but we also know we've seen this story of Bo Nix before. And Bo Nix kind of resurrected his career this year. It's been nice to watch, seeing how impressive he's done over there in Eugene. But we're so used to Bo Nix kind of crumbling when the big moment calls. Is this game in Oregon's mind? They had everything in front of them last year. And in a span of, I believe it was 19 days or 20 days, they wound up getting shellacked by Oregon twice. Once by Utah. Once in Utah, and then the next in the Pac-12 title game. So, Fresh, I'll turn it over to you here. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing here? I kind of feel like Utah's going to go in and do the same thing in Eugene again.
I mean, Utah's a machine. With Tavion Thomas in the backfield, rising quarterback, the offense, the way the offensive line just takes over a football game. They are a physical team. That secondary has the athletes to run with the Oregon Duck receivers. But Bo Nix in the end is the only thing that truly matters in the story here, because if Bo Nix is healthy and able to move, he brings the dynamic to this football game that did not exist last year. That situation with Anthony Brown at quarterback last year, even with Travis Dye, they could not manufacture offense. You put in Bo Nix, who's been able to run around, open up the offense, find the receivers. If that's there, this offense will give Utah a much bigger challenge, because Oregon offense is top 10 in the nation in points per game and total yards per game. Like, they can move the ball up and down the field. Utah's defense in total yards allowed per game and points per allowed per game, they're in the top 25 rankings nationally. So they're a pretty good defense. They're not I don't think they're as amazing as they were last year, but they're still quality. This is going to be the best matchup that Oregon's going to face offensively if they are fully healthy. If Nix is not playing, Utah's defense has a huge advantage. And I think it actually levels the playing field. This game is an Outson Stadium. Their crowd's going to be ready to go. They know they're still technically in shouting distance of a Pac-12 title. I think the college football playoff is out of anyone's grasp right now except for USC. But they have a chance to still winning a conference championship, kind of what we talked about with Wyoming and Boise State and theirs. You have a chance to play for conference title at this time of the year. You need to take advantage of the opportunity. It doesn't come to many teams. You have to be able to grasp it, understand the ramifications of a win and what it could do to build you back up. I think with Dan Lanning after that game, doing some soul searching and admitting that he made some mistakes and that he has to be better and owning up to it, I think probably gets respect. Hopefully, if the players in that locker room and play that program, that my coach understands that he might have let us down. Whether, in truth, if that was actually him or not, he's owning the responsibility. But sometimes you don't see coaches take the responsibility on for a win or a loss. And I think that right there might build some respect for him, and the players might actually be able to rebound a little quicker. And they might actually rally around whoever that backup quarterback might be and how they want to progress in this football game. If they're going to win, they're going to have to strike early on Utah. Make Utah think that they are in a game this time. Because right now, Utah's like, hey, it's Oregon. We beat them. We didn't just beat them last year twice. We physically dominated them in both games. They were not even Oregon was not competitive. Both those games were over basically in the second quarter. So you have to be able to get after them early and say, we're going to be here for the entire football game. And trigger in their mind, they're going to have to play 4 quarters of time. This is not a pushover. This is not a walk away. This is going to be a battle. If Bo Nix plays, I think Oregon rebounds and gets a win. If Bo Nix does not play, I don't trust whoever his backup is to lead the Ducks to a win when you have a very veteran-laden offense there and a veteran-laden football team in Utah. Bo Nix is the key factor. If he plays, Ducks win, and they win convincingly. If he doesn't play, I'm going to say Utah finds a way to squeak out a 3-point win. It's going to be a tight one because the talent gaps have definitely shrunk. But Bo Nix is the key for this football game. If he plays, they win. If he doesn't, Utah wins very close.
So Dan Lanning did give an update here on this game. Bo Nix is looking like he's progressing towards playing. The problem, though, is it looks like the center and the right guard on that offensive line may be out for this game, which would be devastating because one thing that you can do, and I don't care if it's Bo Nix, I don't care who the quarterback is, any quarterback hates that they're having pressure right up the middle. So if he doesn't have an offensive line that can protect him, especially with that ruthless Utah defense, because there's a few things that Utah does really, really well, and that's play defense. Now, is this defense as good as last year's defense? Nah, not necessarily. But they still have an amazing, amazing secondary that can cover very, very well. You take a look at Clark Phillips, the third out there. Dude has been absolutely a monster with 5 interceptions on the year. I don't know about you, Fresh. The sophomore to me is my number one cornerback in this year's college football. I know there's a couple other people, but I think that he doesn't get as much. If he played at another school, like he played it on the East Coast anywhere and put up these same stats, everyone would be singing this kid's praises. The fact that he plays in Utah is what really hurts him. But my most interesting thing is Dalton Kincaid. How does Oregon take away Cameron Rising's best target? Sewell. You take a look at some of these other guys, the linebackers, because that's who's going to have to cover this guy. He's a matchup nightmare. Kid's got 50 catches on the year, 7 touchdowns. And again, he's another unsung hero. We talked about Brock Bowers. We talked about Michael Mayer. We talked about Laporta over at Iowa. We don't talk much about Dalton Kincaid. He's been really great this year, but then he's also been banged up. he also may not play in this game. He actually has been nicked up at different times, and he may not play. But if he plays, he's going to be a huge problem for the Ducks there. Personally, for me, man, once I started finding out that offensive line is kind of tattered a little bit, I think that Washington game is going to open up the floodgates. I think that this is going to be a really tough game for Duck fans to watch. I really do, because I think for all that you've accomplished, for all that you've done that has been very, very spectacular this year, and Bo Nix has really resurrected his career and made us not just think about the Auburn years. I think this is going to be a tough loss for the Ducks to take. Give me Utah in this game.
A great point that you made about the center and the right guard. I remember watching that final 2 drives. The guy, every play was, you could tell he was holding his right shoulder, writhing in pain. You could see it in his face. And if, center, his right arm is what snaps it. They run a lot of shotguns. So it's not just tucking it under for the quarterback in the snap. He's having to launch it back there. And you could definitely tell the pain was getting to him. And it wasn't launching the ball back in the shotgun formation with as much power, as much, authority as he had in the past, because there was so much pain in that right arm. And he had to go to a knee a couple of times, which kind of also killed momentum of the offense. When they're trying to come back, and especially if fast-paced offense, you want to move. They had to pause, bring the trainers out, take a play off, look at him, and just it gave the defense for Washington a chance to catch their breath as well. But he was also in pain. It was a weird kind of the way it all flowed out at the end of the ball game. And if he doesn't play, you really want to give him the credit for fighting through and trying to win that football game and play it out for his team. But sometimes you have to be protected from yourself, and you and maybe getting him off the field, getting him healthy, and letting the next center step in and trusting him to be full for the whole game might be the best thing for him.
Yeah. Tough one for them, because that has been such an amazing year for them this year. So I think it's going to be a rough one for the Ducks. All right, Fresh, let's go to the Big Ten now. A game that we were looking forward to a few weeks ago that has kind of lost its luster. The Illinois Fighting Illini traveling to the Big House, playing the Wolverines. This game's at high noon. Michigan is an 18-point favorite. Over-under is set at 42. Fresh, both of those numbers seem very low to me. I don't know about you. I think that with Illinois losing Chase Brown this week, sad to see him be taken out of this game. 1,400 yards rushing on the season. He's been really impressive. He's taken a lot of the pressure off of Tommy DeVito there. You take a look at Michigan, and we talk about Blake Corum. Dude has been absolutely on a tear. He is, I would argue, he's the best running back in college football, sitting there at 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns on the year, averaging 5.9 yards a carry. He's definitely in line to go to New York for the Heisman for me. I don't know. We can argue all we want about the quarterbacks, Stroud, Hooker, Bennett, Williams out there at USC. You got the kid down at TCU. All of these different quarterbacks that we can talk about. But Blake Corum's been the consistent thing this season here. He's been absolutely dominant all year long. He's just carved up every single defense. But then again, you look at Michigan. You can't blame them who they played, but their schedule has been meh at best. Again, this is the tough thing. Until you play Ohio State, yeah, you take a look at what they did against Penn State. Great win right there. But then you also look at Michigan, guys. Like, you take a look at these last couple weeks and you say Nebraska, Rutgers, Michigan State, Indiana, Iowa was a little bit of a challenge, but that was weeks ago. So I don't know, Fresh. I can't see a pathway for Michigan to lose to Illinois here. They're going into the Columbus game. They're going into that game 11-0 and making that really a top 4 battle between the Buckeyes. Is there any way you can see Illinois pulling this one off?
If Chase Brown was healthy and Illinois won last week, I could potentially see Michigan overlooking them. with Chase Brown out, even if they overlook them, I just don't see enough weapons offensively for the Illini to prevail. Their passing game is definitely not their strength of their offense. They are a run-first football team. They are a physical football team. They came in with one of the best secondaries in the country, and Purdue and Aiden O'Connell threw the ball all over them without any issue. That's what worries me about. That's where you kind of like the eye test and statistics. You need to have a blend of both because they offered very little resistance to that Purdue offense, and that Purdue offense had been up and down all year, especially the week before when Iowa shut them down. Now, on paper, Illinois and Michigan have two of the top 8 defenses in the country. Michigan's number 1 in total yards allowed and points allowed per game. It's going to be very, very tough for that offense to, especially DeVito, to really guide them in a passing formation or find that next running back. We talked about in our last week when we were previewing Illinois, they need to find that second back to help balance out, and give and lighten the workload. We still don't know who that number 2 tailback is going to be. Now, with Brown most likely out, you hear reports from Bielema saying he's improving this week. Look, we said this before. We've said this multiple times. You don't have to put out injury reports in college. I think it's just smoke. Hey, keep the thought in Michigan's head that Chase Brown might play. You don't want to definitely say he's not playing and make that a little easier for them to focus their defense, their strategy defensively to lock in on what they're going to attack the Illini with. I don't. If that was the case and they had won, maybe Michigan's like, hey, we're good. I don't think that they're going to overlook Illinois because now they came out number 3 again in the poll, and they're going to have to find more style points. I think they're going to win no matter what Chase Brown is playing, but I think this is going to get ugly really quick. They are going to pour it on. They're going to make a statement. Illinois is no longer ranked, but I think they've been ranked all year. They're going to be like, hey, we beat the junk out of them. We made a statement at home. Take us seriously. Even if we somehow things happen the next week, we've beaten everybody handily. We should maybe get consideration for it at large bid. That's what right now is going through Jim Harbaugh and that Michigan program's mind. Brett Bielema's team is going to have to slow down this onslaught that's coming on Saturday as much as they possibly can. That defense, their pride is on the line. Can they stop Blake Corum, and can they force J.J. McCarthy to throw the football? If their secondary is their strength, they need to put 8 guys in the box and let them man up if they have to and try to, hey, you know what? Our pride's in our secondary. J.J. McCarthy, throw the football, see what you can do, and challenge him that way. Let him try to win it with an arm. I think actually that might be better for Michigan as well. Prove they can win a game throwing the football. I'm agreeing with you. Blake Corum is a Heisman candidate. With Chase Brown now most likely out, it comes down to him and Dwayne McBride as the top 2 running backs in the country for rushing leader. And if he has a good game this week, he has a chance of surpassing him and locking himself up as the number 1 leading rusher in total yards in the season. Add a couple more touchdowns, really build it up, and then have a huge game versus Ohio State. Could really put him in that opportunity to host that award. It's a big deal right now for Michigan, but I think they need to win by style. Look what happened last week with Tennessee and Missouri. Tennessee was throwing the football up by 30 with 3, 4, 5 minutes to go in the football game. The reason why they were doing that is style points. The game was already over. They already knew it. Everybody knew it. They had to put up points on the scoreboard, put up 66, and make a statement to the committee that they're going to dominate opponents. Michigan has to do the same thing this week to really build up that Ohio State matchup the next week even more. So I expect if they have an opportunity, they're going to pour it on Illinois. And I don't think Illinois much stands a chance with Chase Brown not playing in this football game. It could get ugly. Really fast.
Yeah. And you take a look at Michigan's linebackers right now, man. All 3 of them are some of their leading tacklers and really have made life tough for opposing offenses. And, you want to talk about Colston and Barrett right over there, those first 2 names that jump off the page. And that's one of the things that Michigan's kind of returning back to their greatness is of having those linebackers. They got a lot of pressure last year from that defensive line. Right now, it looks like they're able to get that from that second line unit right there. But again, if I'm going to try to beat Michigan, I want to put the ball in J.J. McCarthy's hands. And I still even think like that. The only thing that was unique to me, man, was both of these teams are ball control offenses. Illinois has won the time of possession battle this year 34 minutes on average. Michigan, 35 minutes. The only, again, I'm searching. I feel like I'm grasping for straws. Tommy DeVito plays out of his mind. Illinois' defense, they show up. They force J.J. McCarthy into a couple mistakes, and they can really, kind of control the game, and they control the pace of play. That's the only way I could see Illinois winning. And again, I feel like I'm just grasping at a way to make this game competitive. I really think Michigan blows Illinois out. I think that the lasting image of Chase Brown sitting on the sideline at the very fourth quarter, screaming in pain, grabbing his leg. Come on, Brett Bielema. I know you want to sit there and try to keep competitive balance, but I know what my eyes saw, man. This game's going to get out of hand pretty quick, pretty early. So give me the Wolverines in a big, big win here, fresh.
Yeah, I think they try to hang 50 on them just to make a statement.
Yeah. All right, fresh. Let's go down south here. We're going the Georgia Bulldogs. Last big test for them. I don't even know if this is a big test anymore. The Kentucky Wildcats. 6-4. This game is interesting because it is in Lexington. It is at Kroger Field for the Wildcats. They are home, and Georgia's 22.5-point favorite. Fresh. I'll hand the ball off to you, man. Georgia, Kentucky. I kind of feel like I'm leading into the same as Illinois and Michigan here. You see any way the Wildcats can pull this off?
Well, I think the first thing is, do the players and coaches come in with a complacency? Do they overlook them? Do they overlook them and Georgia Tech and focus on LSU already? Like, where's that mindset at? Do injuries catch up? They've had some guys banged up all year. There's some players who haven't even played, in 6-7 weeks. Guys who've been playing somewhat hurt. Do you play them early on? And if the game is out of control, you rest them. But do you unfortunately maybe run the risk of having to play them and get hurt or getting beat up in a game if you don't put it away early? That the guys are playing extra snaps they shouldn't have. This is a game that you just you need to focus on, get it done. It's going to be a physical beat up, game. It's not going to be the offense you've seen the past few weeks of 4 receivers in the field spreading it out, slinging the ball up and down the field. This is going to be a grinded out Rodriguez smoke in the backfield. Will Levis play action a little bit, and throwing to Robinson every once in a while. That passing attack for Kentucky is nothing to stick at. They struggled with Vanderbilt. Maybe you see them come out with a little more fire, but it's not the same Kentucky offensive line, or they call it the Big Blue Wall, as it's been the past few years. They had 3 guys get drafted last year, and they have not recovered and been able to make up for those 3 players that got drafted and cover those losses on the line. There's pass rush has been there. The running holes have not been there fully. The Kentucky defense even hasn't been as explosive, as lethal as it been the past few years. It's kind of like that one bridge gap year where we expected them to build off what they had and continue to climb. There's talent there, obviously, in Lexington. Stoops has done a great job, but it's teetering on, does the team just quit? Or is they just haven't got there yet? Injuries catching up with them? I don't know. It's going to be a tough one to sell, but Stoops is a fantastic coach, and there's players with pride. They will try to show up, and nothing better to pull off an upset on senior day over the number 1 team in the country and really throw a major wrench into the college football playoff. There's a lot to play for Kentucky as being the upset, Cats, and you're getting after it. But I'm kind of focusing, back on Georgia, where it's a complacency thing. It's like, oh, here we go. They're not ranked anymore. We already got ourselves a spot in Atlanta. Do we play us tough in this football game? Now, if you look back at what happened versus Mississippi State or even versus Florida, there was turnovers and they get sloppy. They build a lead and they get sloppy, build a lead and get sloppy. Whether it's punt returns, whether it's interceptions, fumbles, they haven't played a clean game very much this season, and they've still been able to beat teams by 20-plus points. You get into a playoff team where you have to rematch versus Tennessee later on, you don't get that luxury. So they have to take this game seriously and focus of where do we have to get better at, where do we have to fine-tune, and take the game, because anything can happen on any kind of play. And you don't want this to become a real ball game in the fourth quarter where you're trying to get healthy, you're trying to work on stuff, and you're trying to get focused. You want to control and dominate the football game. You don't want to give any other committee member, any other team in the country, any inkling to hope that, this team is vulnerable, we can take them. you have to come out and show your dominance and not give up, not give an inch to a Kentucky football team. If it becomes an ugly ball game in a fourth quarter, you never know how the ball is going to bounce. And things can happen crazy. You need to take control of the football game and get it done. And even like from the coaching perspective of make sure you are locked in as well. Just because you're playing a team that you might think on paper or on film is lesser, you cannot coach scared or coach complacent. You need to coach like you're playing Tennessee or Oregon or Ohio State or Michigan. You have to be able to coach as well as your players play. And there's been some coaching miscues for that Mississippi State game that I think they need to work on. There's no reason why you should have come out and thrown the ball 3 times and tried to score with 45 seconds. You run the ball out, get to the locker room, build off the 10-point lead and move on. Like even things like that, play calling, staying focused and not losing that goal of winning a conference championship and playing in the college football playoff. That's your goal, but you have to get there and be perfect. So that's, I think, it's the biggest test is, looking at, you want to be like Alabama. You want to build the standard of being Alabama. What Bama did during their run, and even currently now, they are playing almost, even with struggles, they still play every football game to the utmost of their ability. And they are there in the fourth quarter, either dominating or finding ways to win football games. You cannot let a game or a no-show on the schedule become a problem for you. And that's where I think Georgia has to take the next step of being dominant week in and week out and instilling their will. And showing that they are the standard of the SEC. And it's not Alabama anymore. I think that's the biggest challenge. Where will this team, mindset-wise, move forward? I think the Dogs win, but I'm looking forward to seeing, are they better in every area of the football game? Do they tackle better? Are they more focused? And also be on the lookout for crazy trick plays from Kentucky. They're going to pull at every stop. And how do you adapt on another hostile road environment and find ways to win a football game?
So I was going through here, and I still am confused on how Will Levis is a top 10 quarterback prospect, especially with the kind of the games that he's kind of produced over the last few weeks here. It's not been good. He hasn't played good football in weeks here. He is prone to take a lot of sacks. He holds on to the football way too long for my liking, and I think that that's going to be a big problem for Kentucky. And this Georgia defense is, if I was me, I would come out blitzing 2 guys from jump. I would go six on the pass rush, 5 in the back covering, and seeing if Will Levis can pick you apart. Like put the ball in his hands, force him to beat you. I know Rodriguez has kind of come back. The only thing with Georgia this year, fresh, and I'm going back to this, and I went through and I said, again, I'm trying to grasp at straws and talk myself into this game being competitive. So I went back and I look at Mississippi versus Mississippi State last week. It was 17-12 going into the half. Georgia was winning, but how they were playing in the first half was they struggled a little bit. They come out at halftime and they boat race Mississippi State. You look at Tennessee. They're up 24, I think 3 at halftime against Tennessee, or 24-7. And then they only scored 3 points in the second half. I know the weather came into play there in the second half against Tennessee. And then you take a look at Florida. They built a big lead at Florida, and then next thing you know, Florida rattles off a couple of touchdowns, and then Georgia remembers that they're the defending national champion and picks themselves off and runs it up against the Gators. It seems like this Georgia team needs to be punched in the mouth in a game. Like they start winning, they get a lead, and then they take their foot off the gas, and they want to they need someone to punch back. I need you to fight me back. Like, I can't just sit there and just pound away at you and just knock you out. And then I guess it's almost like a boredom thing. And maybe it leads into your point of saying, are you looking for, you're going to destroy Georgia Tech next weekend. Like, that's not even a game. Are you looking at LSU already and saying, okay, well, we got to beat LSU to get into the college football playoff, and you have something to play for there? This Kentucky game, the only thing you have to play for is pride. This is the only thing. This game means so much more to Kentucky than it does to Georgia. It really does. Because in my mind, I'm sitting there going, Kentucky could come in here if they God forbid a miracle happens, because they're going to need a miracle. They're going to need a lot of stuff. I know Kentucky's in the Bible Belt over there, so maybe all those guys are already praying for that. But if they pull off the miracle, they could sit there and say, "All right, yeah, we didn't win. We're only a 7-win team this year, but we beat Georgia," and they can hang their hat on that. Outside of that, they're fresh. Like, that's me grasping. And I mean, I'm like grasping with my fingernails out here, trying to find something to talk about with Kentucky. I think the minute Kentucky punches Georgia in the mouth in this game, whether it be in the second quarter, whether it be in the third quarter, maybe Kentucky rattles off 10 points against Georgia at some point or another in this game. I think Georgia then goes, "Oh, wait. This isn't happening here. We're the Bulldogs here. We're on our way to being going to the college football playoff, looking like we're on our way to having a shot at being a back-to-back defending national champion." The only thing fresh, and I would like to see this more out of Georgia, is I know that the Edwards and the McIntosh and the Milton thing has really kind of helped them for it. I know that it's fresh there, but I would like to see them do a little bit more in the passing game. I know that they've spread the ball out. Brock Bowers and Washington are two phenomenal tight ends. I'm a huge fan of both of them. I think that they create matchup problems galore. But McConkey is the only wide receiver that has more than 25 catches. And I know you have two great tight ends. I would love to see them work a little more with the wide receivers, do some stuff a little bit more on the outside. I think that later on, come down the road, and I'm saying this not for just Kentucky, but something that you may need later down the road there. Like, okay, if we can take away your tight ends, are you able to throw the ball against a pass defense that takes away your tight ends here? Now, I don't know if many teams can take away Washington and Bowers. That would be a hefty ask. But again, I'm trying to talk myself into things here. I got Georgia big. I'm gonna say 3 touchdowns here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the passing game is one thing they need to really get the healthy guy, the guys healthy. Like Pierce Jackson came back last week, coming off some injuries. Keep him healthy. He's a clutch receiver to help balance out McConkey in the passing game. Get AD Mitchell back. Hasn't really played in 8 games. They are missing some guys, but finding creative ways to move the offense is also just it's something where you don't get predictable and it keeps the guys on their toes. But yeah, they need to get a little more consistent with get those receivers some reps. This week and next week are great opportunities because you are going to need it down the stretch when it's basically a one and done situation if you don't show up on game day.
Yeah. Fresh, before we move to our last game of the week here, and our game of the week, the biggest battle, the Battle of LA. Huge win going down up there in the Glass Bowl against the rivalry game, the Bowling Green Falcons and the Toledo Rockets. We previewed this game during our recap episode for our producer, Drew. Bowling Green with a touchdown with 9 seconds to go in the fourth quarter, pulling off the upset. And like I said, turn that rocket around, face it to Canada. Way to go, Falcons. Big win by Bowling Green. Big win.
Fighting Digital Drews, get it done.
I would like to see, I wonder if he's awake right now. Probably. I'm going to guess no, but I would love for him to be like texting us and be like, "Did you see this?" So, all right, Fresh.
That's awesome.
Let's go to our game of the week here, folks. This is the one we've been looking forward to. No, we're not talking about Bedlam, but we're going over to the Battle of LA. It's 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. The USC Trojans traveling to the Rose Bowl and UCLA Bruins. Trojans are 9-1, UCLA 8-2. This is again a conference elimination game. USC is a 2.5-point favorite. Over under, and this is my favorite part here, Fresh. Over under is set at 75.5. A lot of points in this game here. This is going to be something. If USC doesn't lose this game, if UCLA doesn't beat the Trojans, folks, I don't care how you feel about Lincoln Riley, but he just pulled a 10-win season his first year in LA. Fresh, give me something here. What do you got? UCLA, USC. Let's break it down.
Well, first off, you're talking about the defenses in the 70.5, where they set the over under at. The first thing when I looked at both these defenses is kind of like in Home Alone when Kevin is going through Buzz's, stuff and sees the picture of his girlfriend. He's like, "Whoa, Buzz, your girlfriend, woof." That's what I see when I look at both those defenses. It's painful. Um, both these offenses are the exact opposite. These offenses are like supermodels. They're like Giselle out after being divorced from Tom Brady and back on the market. They are smoking. Two of the top 10 offenses in the country. Most quarterbacks can do it with their legs and their arm. It's just which part of the supporting cast is going to show up. USC losing Travis Dye to a terrible injury this past week is going to, I really feel terrible for him. Coming over there from Oregon and having a chance to really play, be more involved in this offense, and see him go down like that is sad for the kid. How is USC going to find that running game going forward? Who's going to step up and take it on? This is the first true challenge for USC outside of that Utah game, and they lost it by a point. Went for 2. They have not had a schedule that has offered up any true challenges. So we're going to find out, is USC legit this week and next week? And even if they lose this week, we're going to find out even more depending how they even bounce back. So they have to know, Caleb Williams, you've got to show up. Jordan Addison, Mario Williams, everybody else in that, all those transfer kids that came in, all those star-studded recruits that have been, coming over from wherever they came from to come play at USC. Lincoln Riley, this is all about you. And this is the statement of your program. Not just for who you are now, but I think who you are for the next 3 to 5 years. Because you have not really played anyone. You have, at times, the defense has given up a lot of points and teams have come back and made it closer than it should have been. Nothing's been a true dominant effort week in and week out. And I've done a whole study on offensive and defensive rankings. The Pac-12 defenses are horrible across the board for the most part. So if you're not blowing people out in the Pac-12 and you're letting teams hang around, that's not a good thing. USC's defense has got to show up this week. You cannot win this game 56-53. You've got to find ways to get a couple stops. Because UCLA, they looked ahead, they lost, they are angry, they are mad. They are going to come out fully on fire, ready to upset your season and keep themselves in the picture for a championship. Yeah, the playoff might not exist for UCLA, but they still can find a way to play for a Pac-12 title and maybe play in the Rose Bowl at home, and completely take out their rival and show they still own the city. So you've got to be able to show up and make a statement for your own program. Because if you lose this football game, people are going to be like, "Huh, it's Lincoln Riley." There's a lot of Oklahoma fans who are having a rough season, and they can't wait to see you lose so they can come after you guys and be happy. So there's a lot of pressure on USC to step up and get it done. Jordan Addison, you left Pitt. You wanted to become in this showcase offense. You wanted to light it up and boost your stats and even be better and double up on your Blitnikoff. Well, you're not going to win the Blitnikoff Award, but if you want to boost your NFL draft stock, you need to show up and have a big game this week. Caleb Williams, people look at you as a system quarterback that really can't show up when big games are on the line. You came back versus Texas. We've all seen what Texas is. Last year they weren't very good defensively, but where did you actually show up during the season last year for Oklahoma? You had your ups, you had your downs. You haven't played anybody this year. You're actually 1-3 in your 4 career games versus ranked opponents as a starter. That's not great. You throw a bunch of interceptions. This is your chance to show up and put up some legit stats to show that you're actually a true, legit winning quarterback. Defensively, USC, you've got a lot of these players, these kids, these high quality recruits out there from California. It's not week 1, it's not week 2. This is week 12. You should have a system in place. You should know who your 2 deep is. These guys should be able to play some football. If they don't show up, if they get throttled, what are you actually doing? Are you actually bringing in some players? Have some pride. Corey Freeman was the number 1 overall recruit 2 years ago, and he is a non-existent lost cause on this defense in his second season. Is he going to show up and prove that he was the number 1 overall player in the country, or is he just a guy? You've got some, where are these talented players? Are they actually showing up and gelling and making plays? That's what I want to see. This is a defining moment for that USC program. Yes, it's in year 1, but when you want to come with all the pomp and circumstance, you want to have, flashy all Hollywood all about you. You've got to show up and produce. Yes, you only have 1 loss and you lost a close one, But a loss here to your in-city rival, your historic rival, with a college football playoff potential on the line, with a potential Pac-12 championship on the line, you've got to get it done. And you've got to probably do it in convincing fashion. Now, looking at where the college football playoff came out today, USC, you were put at number 7. UCLA, they dropped to number 16. You're at number 7. You've got to pass LSU. You've got to pass Tennessee and potentially passing the loser of the Michigan-Ohio State game and maybe even TCU. You have a very tall schedule. You have zero room for error if you want to be taken seriously. I mean, it's not just you have to beat UCLA. You've got to beat them probably by 2 or 3 touchdowns to really even jump up to maybe 6 and maybe even 5 and let things play out. You don't have to win this football game. You've got to do it in convincing fashion. Any sign of struggle, any sign of issues in the committee's mind, you might win the game, but if there's any, they will see pain, they will see flaws, and they will keep you down. You've got to just come play out of your mind this week, and you have to do the repeat next week versus Notre Dame. And if you're fortunate enough, do it again the week after. You've got to basically put your entire season on these next 3 weeks to really make a statement to the world, to the country, to the committee, to yourselves that USC is back and USC is a true contender. That's a lot to put on the shoulders of a team that none of these players have really been tested before in their career, outside, honestly, of Jordan Addison. He was the one who actually played for a conference championship last year. The rest of these guys are young. They don't know any better. Yeah, Lincoln Riley's coached in the Rose Bowl and coached in some Big 12 title games, but these players have not. This is your season basically in a 3-game window. Can you be perfect? Can you dominate and win football games? On the other side, honestly, I think this entire game is perfect for Chip Kelly and perfect for his coaching staff and perfect for his players. His players have been battle tested for a couple of years. They sleptwalked through the fourth quarter. They blew the game. They should have won it. They're coming off a loss. They're angry. They are now focused. Will that team who's been battle tested show up and beat down on a defense that's not very good? Knowing your defense isn't great, but you have a good quarterback. I think you have a much better running back. Receivers, I think, are a toss-up because I've seen consistency from Bobo and UCLA. You have the star power and names from USC. It's going to be a fun one. I would take the over 70.5. I've gone back and forth on 75.5. Well, give me 80 points. Give me like a 42-40 football game. But I think this is going to be defense. No one's going to stop anybody. As much as I like UCLA and what they've done, I think USC has the playmakers and the receivers to get it done late in the football game. I'm going to say USC fight on 44-41 final. And that game might actually run for like 5 hours.
Yeah, this is going to be a get your popcorn ready type of game. You're going to lock in at 8 p.m. If it's cold where you are, get yourself a nice cup of hot chocolate or, nice glass of wine or a couple beers. This is going to be a great matchup type of a game. So I'm a matchup person here, Fresh. I'm looking for something interesting to watch. Colin Bullock for the Trojans going up against Jake Bobo. Who wins that matchup on the outside there? You look at Bullock, he's sophomore, 6'3". He's a big defensive back. That's a big boy right there covering. Is he able to take Bobo out of the game? Or if you can put him on an island against Bobo and force Charbonnet and DTR, I know that still that is a tall task to stop those two as well. But you look at how many turnovers USC has forced this year. They forced a lot of interceptions. Bullock has been a big part of that. DTR, you got to stop him. Looking at the other part, too, is who can slow down Zach Charbonnet? This is the crazy. Think about this here for a second, Fresh. At one point, right now, Michigan could have Blake Corum and Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet transferred from Michigan, and the dude, again, you look at what he's done. He only has 150 carries on the season, and he's over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. He also has become a little bit better of a threat out of the backfield with 29 receptions, but those receptions are going for over 10 yards a catch. This kid has really become such a focal point of this UCLA offense. You take a look at the defensive side of the football for UCLA. I'm looking at, and again, I try really hard because we have one of my favorite fans of the show who's Samoan, always trying to get me to pronounce these things. La'atu Latu has 8 sacks on the year. Can he get to the quarterback in this game? Can he really wreak some havoc there as well? If he's able to do that for UCLA, I think UCLA wins this game. If you take a look at USC, they have their own Samoan bulldozer. You look at him, and again, I'm going to try really hard to get this right. Tula Tulopolotu has 11 and a half sacks on the year. He has been absolutely dominant from the defensive line position. If he has a couple of games where he can stop DTR and stop that rushing attack, again, I think this is USC wins this game. The focus is going to be put on the quarterbacks, Caleb Williams versus DTR, but this game is going to go so much further in. Is USC able to force turnovers? Are they able to put UCLA in long situations? And then the reverse goes for UCLA. Are they able to do that to USC? This is a game where I'm with you. I think this is going to be a big time shootout. I think that 75 and a half is a lot of points, man. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to, if I'd be bold enough to put an 80 spot combined with them, but I like your style. I like your style, dude. Um,
Hey, if I'm staying up till midnight on Saturday night to watch this game, they better be scoring. It better not be like 10-3.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way this is a 10-3 game. If this is a 10-3 game, like we're coming on,
I'm asleep.
yeah, we'll be out cold. But I don't know, man. I'm having a hard time picking this game. I'm back and forth. I've been back and forth. I actually didn't even make a pick in my notes. So I'm gonna go USC. Yeah, I'm gonna fight on USC. Give me the Trojans, and I'll say give me the Trojans by a point because I think it's gonna be close.
I agree. It's gonna be a tight game. There's a lot to play for, but it'll be a high scoring one. The one funny thing that just dawned on me is just be on the lookout. I know I talked about my recap last week about officiating. There's been some questionable calls. The Pac-12 has been out of the playoff since 2016. USC right now is on paper. There really the legit only chance as we speak of right now to make it in if anything worked out. Be watching for any maybe shady calls or non-calls by the refs if maybe the league speaks to them. Like I'm not saying they're trying to fix the game, but they are probably desperate to get back on the national scene. Be mindful of that as this game plays out because that might be some stuff that comes into play, or at least be talked about if things go against UCLA.
All right, Fresh. Let's do some quick picks here because we have a couple of really good games. We'll go through these pretty quick here before we wrap up for the night. TCU traveling to Baylor. Who you got?
It's a rivalry. I'm going to say after last week, TCU Horned Frogs all day long.
All right. UMass traveling to Texas A&M.
Are you giving me points?
Listen, I'm going to say this. I don't think it's up for debate that there's a possibility that UMass pulls this off.
I don't. I will say A&M does not cover the 30 plus.
30 plus.
A&M is not covering the 30 plus.
Is Jimbo fired by the end of this week?
If they don't win if they lose, he doesn't make it. He doesn't make it out of the city. He's fired.
He's fired at.
If they don't cover the spread, maybe.
UTSA at Rice. Ooh, tough one right there. That's an interesting one.
Give me San Antonio Roadrunners over Rice.
Yeah. All right, Kansas State traveling to Morgantown, West Virginia.
I think K-State's a lot better than Oklahoma. I think they're actually going to have West Virginia's attention, and because of that upset that West Virginia had, and they're going to know who that quarterback was. Backup came in and they benched JT Daniels. They already have film on him. K-State gets it done. Deuce Vaughn all day long.
All right, so this is one that I wish we would have won our poll. It was in the poll, but Houston at ECU. I love this game.
Pirates and Cougars sounds like a Halloween party.
Yes, sir.
Give me Give me Houston.
Give you Houston. I would actually go ECU in that game. I think that because it's at ECU, that's why I would like the Pirates in that game. All right, we'll speed it up here. Iowa at Minnesota.
Ooh. Give me Iowa. I think the momentum. Minnesota has struggled offensively. The defense is good, but their offense is terrible. Iowa finds a way to get it done. 10-3.
Bedlam, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma.
Yikes. I'm going to go with Oklahoma because I don't think Spencer Sanders playing, and definitely with him not being in that team and being hurt, Oklahoma State's definitely fallen off. So the Sooners find a way to get the W.
As you referred to it early last week as the pillow fight in the Big 12.
Pillow fight of Oklahoma.
The pillow fight there. And let me give you one last one here. Let's get an interesting one. Let's go all the way to... let's throw this one up here. Miami at Clemson.
Clemson beat down. I mean,
Wow.
this has been downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm to a tropical depression to a thunderstorm. I think this is just a spring rain at this point, and they're going to get destroyed.
Yeah. Well, one more win, Miami's bowl eligible, and they got Clemson and Pitt. So I'll be interested to see what the Hurricanes do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. I want to send a special thank you to our producer, Drew. Thank you so much for all of his work there. He's the one behind the scenes producing these episodes, so big shout out to him. Remember, we're part of Spinnable Sports, so make sure you're going to spinnablesports.com. Yep, that's spinnablesports.com for all your sport needs. Like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, Anything Pods, Amazon Pods, Google Pods, anything that says pods in it. You know I don't know them all. Like, subscribe, leave us that 5-star review because you guys know Fresh and I were those 5-star prospects. If you're watching this on the YouTube, subscribe to that Spinnable Sports channel. Hit that notification bell. Let you know every single time that we put out a new episode. For those of you who are counting, this right here is episode 99. Fresh and I, we've been doing this for a while now here. So make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get the podcast from because we got something big coming your way for episode 100, a very special episode. I feel like it's almost an after-school special, Fresh. So, got all those places. Follow us on Twitter. Vote in our polls. Hey, one more week, Fresh. One more week.
One more week. Before we wrap, I do want to, on behalf of Spinnable Sports and this podcast, send our condolences to the University of Virginia family and the community. Tragedy that happened, this past week. Horrific, and just hope that everyone finds ways to heal the best they possibly can. But our thoughts and prayers with all of you. Anything you guys can do, if anyone knows anyone with the Virginia community to help them heal, reach out because they need some help right now and they need some peace and some friendship.
Yeah, tough thing going on out there. I feel for everyone. Lives cut way too short. Way too short.
Yep.
So senseless violence, man. I just love each other. Don't hate each other. So it's sports. It gives us an escape from reality, but remember there are real people behind these things. So again, thank you all for listening to another great episode, and we will be back with you next week.
Bye, y'all.